Moving along from the previous lesson, we'll continue working on the actual texturing of this game man here in Photoshop. So one of the things that you may notice as you're working through this, that the skin texture itself right now looks a little bit on the cold side because it's being painted over this just simply gray image. So what we could actually do in Photoshop is take this gray area, or these black and white areas, and actually add a little bit of color just in these one little areas. So to do that, what I'm going to do is select this ambient occlusion layer, which is just this one. So with this selected in Photoshop, you have what are called adjustment layers. So things like levels, hue and saturation, color balance, all of these things can be applied as what's called an adjustment layer. And basically what that means is if you apply it as an adjustment layer, you can come back and modify that at any time. And that's really what we want to do. So to assign any adjustment layer to just one layer, what you need to do is select the layer and then Alt click on the button down here at the bottom. So holding down the Alt key, let's use hue and saturation. And if you do it, it should pop up this little window. What we want to do is use the previous layer for a clipping mask. Alright, now what we want to do is in this hue and saturation menu, let's colorize. And you can see what's happening now with this colorize as I come in and adjust this hue level, so we can go anywhere from red to green to blue and anywhere in between. So what we want to do is choose kind of an orange color down here since it's sort of in the flesh tone. Right, we'll give it a little bit higher saturation level, maybe a little bit more lightness. There we go. And what you can see is that that actually warms this skin color up a lot more. But what you will also notice is that it also changes the color for all these other parts. So the great thing about using an adjustment layer is you have this mask option. So if I click on the mask, what I can do is now take my marquee tool, select just these areas of the face, and then on my keyboard or with the pull down menu, you can invert my selection. So if I go to select, inverse, or Control Shift I, that will inverse my selection. And now I can fill that with black. So you can now see I have just this one little white circle and basically, or this white rectangle, and basically this rectangular area, or this white area, is revealing just this little bit that I've actually color corrected. So I can come back and with my paintbrush actually paint away some of these areas as well. So what I'm doing is just painting with black, and you could think of it as really just like a very powerful version of the erase tool. So for things like these eyes, you can see that the eyes now have a little bit of a yellow color to it, which we really don't want them to have. So what I can do is take this diameter, let's take this down to maybe about 3, and what I can do is paint with black to erase this yellowness or this orange color from these eyes and restore kind of that gray color that was underneath them before. There we go. So now you can see how the skin looks much warmer compared to what it did before. If I were to turn that adjustment layer off, you can see the huge difference that it makes. So now if I were to save this back out, Game Man Color Map, and go back to XSI, it should immediately update the texture for you. And you can see how that looks much better. A lot more like a realistic skin tone would expect to look. Alright. Coming along quite nicely. Now what I want to do is paint in a few of these areas around this chest piece. So what I'm going to do is open up a directory called 3D Total. Alright, now these are some textures that have been generously provided for you on this disk by 3D Total. So we have a couple of images that we're going to use for the textures on this guy's chest piece. So I'll start with this metal 19B. Alright, nice metal type texture. So what I can do is drop this in. And I might want to scale this down a little bit because it does take up quite a bit of space. So I can scale this down a little bit until it pretty much encompasses the top or the front and the back pieces. Alright, so I want it to cover this area. Now just like before, if I wanted to actually give this a little bit of color, that's very easy to do. Again, just hold your Alt key, click on the adjustment layer. We want to use the previous one as a clipping mask. Let's colorize this just to give it a little bit of color and find something kind of in the rust area. Alright, just like that. Now the only places that I want to be able to actually have this rust color is this little ventilation system and these ribs. So a really easy way that I find to do this is to just go ahead and flood this with a clipping mask. So what I can do in this layer 1, which I'll go ahead and call this rust, let's make a clipping mask or a layer mask. Alright, now again, this layer mask is going to act a lot like an eraser. So not only can I erase things away, I can also erase things back in, depending if I use black or white. So if I use white, you can see it's actually, or if I use black, it's actually erasing it. You can see that little black area that I just painted. Now if I switch it around to white, I can actually paint that area right back in. So a lot of times what I like to do is flood this with black. Right, just like that. And now what I can do is come in and just simply, with my paintbrush, now I can switch this to a white and just now quickly paint these areas back in. So you can almost kind of think of it like painting with a color or painting with a texture, but by just simply painting with black and white, I'm just revealing where that texture is going to be. So you can see this actually goes pretty quickly. I'm just going to come in, really quickly paint these, and if you go over any areas, like you can see right here, I just missed a little spot. That's okay, you can just switch this back to black, and then erase that part right back away. Very easy, very convenient. Alright, so I can also do the same exact thing on these little ribs over here. So I can come in, just paint with white to reveal this part of the layer mask and reveal this rust image that we have underneath. And there we are. So you can see very quickly how this starts to take its shape. Alright, so I'm going to pause this for just one moment while I finish this up. Alright, so there's that part painted up. Now one thing I will share with you, and something that I really think just makes life a lot easier whenever painting any kind of textures in Photoshop, this will, like I said, just make things a lot easier on you, is whenever you click on your mouse, if you press and hold the Shift key, you'll see it actually makes a straight line between wherever you click. So again, make your first mouse click, and then hold the Shift key, and make your second mouse click. What this really helps you do is get around some of these border edges with nice straight lines. So sometimes whenever you try to hand paint these lines, they'll come out a little bit kind of crooked or sometimes a little bit squiggly, just because it's really hard to hand paint a perfectly straight line. But by pressing and holding the Shift key between mouse clicks, what that'll do is ensure that you get a nice straight line that connects those two mouse clicks. And it really, like I said, just it makes life a lot easier whenever trying to go around these outside border edges especially. So again, I'm just going to hold my Shift key while I go around here. And then from here, I can just simply switch to a slightly larger brush and fill in the hole, or fill in whatever space we have left over. So I'll come in, fix that part up, Now that I don't have to worry about staying inside the lines as accurately, I can come in, just really quickly paint this up. Alright, and there we go. Switch this down to a little lower value. I can come in, paint up this piece on the shoulder. There we go. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have at this point. So I'll go ahead and just save this out as a JPEG. Go back to XSI. And here we go. Here's what we've painted at this point. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the lesson at this point, and in the next lesson we'll finish up with the actual texture painting of this game character.